This is a special night, and tonight marks, I think, the first night of what I think we will believe many of these sorts of nights, these annual vision and prayer nights. And I know we hosted it just to respond to a couple of your questions and concerns. We did host it on Martin Luther King weekend. I know a lot of people are out of town, but it's like we're going to talk about the new year, and you don't want to do it too early or too late. We had to do it this weekend, so we're still going to have a great time and have this conversation. To start, I want to say I believe that tonight marks the beginning of a very different era for Doxa, I think, a very different era. I believe actually the end of 2023 was the end of sort of a first iteration for our church. So bear with me for a second. 2015, Doxa was formed, right, from the collection of some of the ashes of Mars Hill. And the church was really about reestablishing trust and reestablishing trust with people specifically, trust with authority figures. And from there, it sort of journeyed into what we sort of believe were the possibilities for what authentic discipleship could be, right? We did that. And the church did that for about, 4 or 5 years. And then a big pandemic happened. You remember that? It feels like 100 years ago. But it did happen. And COVID, it changed the face of Doxa forever, but it really actually changed the face of what modern ministry looks like as a whole. Like it changed the face of how people would do church, bringing in the digital era forward, all these different things, right? And so COVID hits right in the middle of Doxa's sort of its first iteration, and then a leadership change happens 2.5 years ago. I'm here, right? And so now I'm here. I'm the new Stu guy. Okay, that's cool, and I'm glad you're here too. And then we moved to Redmond, right, as a church about 20 months ago. And since then, we've sort of been regaining our footing as a church, like recentering ourselves and answering the question, who is Doxa now? Like, what does Doxa look like, right? Like, who are we going to be as we move, as we transition, and as we sort of leave sort of a big, large pandemic where it's shaken up the majority of these regions, right? Now, I don't know if you noticed over the last couple of years, but the last 2 years, in our old rhythm of look back and look forward, remember when we used to do that way back last year, right? Our goal for those 2 years was actually the same. And sometimes people don't catch those kind of things, but I'm a nerd, and so I'll tell you, it was actually the same. I had the same vision for that year, and it was to be with God. It was to grow closer with Jesus, right? If you remember, it was to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Or we use Jesus' words, right? It's the Shema in Deuteronomy chapter 6, right? So this year, as we begin sort of a new era and a new epoch, really, in our history, we want to take the momentum that we had with being with God and do next what should come naturally after such an encounter. If we spend a couple years with God, we want to become more of the natural byproduct of what being with God does to somebody, okay? And you've heard me say it before, but I want to say it again. We want to become something called the Seattle Antifreeze, okay? Now, it's corny for sure, and we've talked about it before, but I still think it's actually more necessary to think about this concept of the Seattle Antifreeze this year than it has. It's been more important this year than it has in any other year. And as you may know, Seattle in particular is at times can be not as friendly of a place. You can be honest. If you haven't left the Puget Sound in your whole life, you don't know that. But if you lived other places or you've just been on vacation anywhere in the Midwest or the South or anywhere else, people are a little more friendly. And if you've been in the Northeast, they're not more friendly, but they are more straightforward, right? Like it's kind of how it works. We're a little quiet to ourselves. But I do think it's more necessary this year to think about what it means to be the Seattle Antifreeze than any other year in recent memory. And here's why, okay? I'll give you the breakdown. There's a guy named David Kinnaman. He was an author and a missiologist. He coined the term digital Babylon, right? Digital Babylon. And he did this a few years ago to describe the current societal landscape that the church was facing. And the landscape was characterized by 3 things. First, access. Okay, access. You and I, we have unlimited access to all information all of the time, thanks to the supercomputer in your pocket that was designed by the world's smartest engineers, designed to siphon your time, effort, and energy from you at any given moment, right? Amen, right? That's what it's designed for, right? Access. The second thing, alienation. Access to the internet gives us access to things, hear me, we don't want to know about or see, right? Am I alone in that? That's how it works, right? And that further alienates us from each other and from institutions and traditions. And finally, authority. Unlimited access and being alienated from one another makes us skeptical and downright defiant of any and all authority, including things like churches. We don't trust authority anymore. Now, this author, David Kinnaman, he wrote about digital Babylon in 2019. Imagine how different your life was in 2019, right? Your life was probably really different in 2019. Some of you kids, you guys lost years of school, years of building friendships. Many of you moved across the country since then, right? Now, since then, in 2019, it's only accelerated, this digital Babylon. And in 2024, we are only more glued to our devices than we've ever been. And as a result, we're more addicted, we're more overstimulated, we're more overcommitted, and you and I, we're more exhausted than we have ever been. And again, and I should say, we're also more polarized as a society than ever before. You say, I already knew that. Yeah, we're more polarized as a society. Get this, according to Chris Bally of Duke University, just 6% of radical positions on social media drive 73% of all online traffic. So just think about the top 10 most polarizing political, social things you could think of. You know what they are, right? Because 3/4 of all of online traffic is generated by those few things. Crazy, right? Yay for algorithms, you might say, right? Jesus says to love God and love neighbor. The quickest way to hate God and hate neighbor is to just jump right into digital Babylon and log on to social media or listen to your favorite podcast, and you'll hate everything pretty soon. All right, that's how things work out. And there's another factor sort of heightening the complexity of our time that we're in right now, the need for a Seattle Antifreeze. And it's that baby boomers are aging. I'm sorry, we're all aging. Baby boomers are aging, okay? Boomers now, you have historically carried congregations in terms of finances and in terms of volunteering. And to a large degree, you still do. But as boomers are aging and they're aging out, millennials, well, you're not so young anymore. Hate to break it to you. The oldest millennial will turn 43 this year, if that doesn't wake you up, okay? And you Gen Zers, okay, well, you're not just TikTok dancing in front of your phones anymore, are you? See, the oldest Gen Zer will turn 27 this year, right? There is a changing of the guard in churches, but also in finances too, right? We know this. See, as boomers age and many start to pass away, hopefully not so soon, okay? Their Gen Z and millennial children are going to receive the most significant wealth transfer in human history. And this has led, and you probably know this, but it's led many people to speculate on the economic uncertainty in the financial and job markets as this transition takes place. And all of this comes on the heels of what's shaping up to be the most hostile election in the history of the United States. Just say very little about that. It's possible, if not likely, right? Joe Biden and Donald Trump are set to square off in an election again. And it turns out that half the country has a collective psychotic break the time that one of those names are heard in their ears, right? It just happens. So all of this unfolds in the coming years, and people are stressed out, and they're anxious, and they're quiet, and they're overcommitted, and they're polarized. And I think they're going to implicitly need two things, okay? Two things. Number one, they need an oasis from the digital overstimulation and hostile polarization that they're going to feel. And they need an anchor for the uncertainty that will come from the economic and political junk that's ahead, okay? Friends, that's what the Seattle Antifreeze is, right? An oasis from the digital overstimulation and hostile polarization, and an anchor for the uncertainty that will come from the economic and political change that's coming, right? That's what we need. This is the Seattle Antifreeze. And here's a good definition for you if you're asking, like, what might this be, right? An oasis and an anchor for people in 2024. The spiritual transformation of the Puget Sound through radical hospitality and evangelism. Radical. It is a people that is so moved by their encounter with God that hospitality and evangelism just sort of flows out of them, right? It becomes second nature. Now you might ask, like, why should this be our focus? Out of all the things we could possibly do, why would this be our focus? It's because the region needs it. Like Paul says, I became all things to all people so that by all means I might save some, right? We become what the region needs so that people can come to know Jesus. And this is what people need. We need this because people are going to begin to look for places that serve as sanctuaries from the noise that transcend the polarization with something far more meaningful. Friends, the good news of Jesus does this, doesn't it? It does it. It transcends. It does just this. And it will be through our ability to welcome people to our tables and to tell them that there's another way that the Puget Sound could be transformed. I talked to Pastor Matt, the executive pastor for Westminster, and he said, hey, I don't know what you guys have planned for tonight, but I think it must be important because there's a lot going on with this building tonight. And it feels like whatever you're about to say, God is trying to communicate it. And I think that this night can be fun and we can enjoy it together, but if you just listen for a moment, God might have something so life-changing for you. And it might be exactly the thing you need to hear for God to set you to the course for the purpose he's given you for this year, okay? I think that's what's possible. Now, if we want to do radical evangelism and hospitality, it's all fine and good. But I think there's one big barrier to all of this. It's that you and I, we're in the midst of all this muck too, right? It's not as if we get to exist outside of the system and look at all those really distracted people that are all polarized in America. That's really crazy. Let us parachute in, unaffected by their problems, and help them. Do we get to do that? No. We're in this too, right? We're in the midst of all this. We're struggled. We're distracted. We're polarized. We're worried about uncertainty, just like everybody else. And what's one of the biggest casualties of everybody feeling exhausted at the same time together here in America? What's one of the first things to go? It's actually hospitality. It's hospitality. It's because our homes end up becoming sort of a private fortress from the noise in the world. Or as the author Dustin Willis says, it's a place that I eat, sleep, relax, and entertain myself, by myself. Right? That's what the home becomes. He goes on to say this. If you were to break your life into thirds, you could say you'll spend about a third of your life sleeping, about a third working or going to school, and about a third doing whatever you choose. For many of us, a great deal of that last third winds up being spent in our homes, eating, relaxing, enjoying hobbies, entertaining ourselves. So if you divorce God's mission from your home and you see your home as essentially a refuge from mission, you've knocked out 2/3 of your life from any kind of missional possibility. If you as a Christian are seeing your home as a private and personal fortress from all of the noise out there, then you can bet your non-Christian neighbor's doing the exact same thing because everybody's doing it. Now, wouldn't it be a radical breath of fresh air then for someone to be invited into a home for a meal or a game night or to just be served? Wouldn't that change someone's perspective? I mean, you want to scare somebody in Seattle, invite them over for dinner. I mean, if you just walk past somebody on a trail and say, hi, you scare them. Imagine inviting them into your home, right? That would scare them, but it would provide an opportunity. It would provide an opportunity and serve as an open door to share the reason that you open your home in the first place when everybody else's home is closed. Friends, I want you to do this year. I would implore you to do it, actually. I was going to ask you. I think you should do this. Use your personal spaces, not as a refuge from mission, but as a resource for mission. Now you might say, that's so simple. Like that can't be the solve to the digital Babylon you just explained. I mean, you just broke down some like really meta things. There's no way the solve to all of this is inviting people into my home and being hospitable in the spaces I walk in. Here's what I am saying. Fortunately or unfortunately, hospitality is so foreign right now, especially in our region, that I think it is that simple. because nobody knows what to do with it. A radical act of, hey, would you like to come over for dinner? Serves as a way to sort of blow the door open to share the good news of Jesus with somebody. It's insane. Because today, no one's doing that. I've shared this story before, but I remember inviting a couple in with their little new child into my home with Sarah, and we invite them in San Francisco. We're living there, and they come over. They've lived in the city for a long time, and one of the gal is a coach at the gym, and so, hey, we want to come over for dinner and eat, and I'll smoke some meat. That'll be like, who's going to turn that down? And so invite them over, and after dinner's over, we're sitting on the couch, and it's just me and him, and he says, there's something really weird about tonight. What? Is the food bad? Like, what's going on? He says, I've been in San Francisco for 9 years, and this is the first time I've seen someone else's living room. That's crazy. That same opportunity is out there for all of us here on the east side. Now, I think you might not be tracking with me in this hospitality conversation if you have one key misunderstanding about hospitality. Here might be, hopefully I can clear this up for you. Hospitality is not just hosting people in your house. Like you're Martha Stewart or something, right? And you've got to have good meals and great decor. You know what I'm saying? It could mean some of that, but hospitality isn't just hosting people over. Now, a common modern Western misconception of hospitality is that all it means is that you're hosting your friends and family for dinner. And it's like, okay, come on in, like hospitality. The biblical word for hospitality means the welcoming of strangers. It means welcoming the other, welcoming people that are not like me into my home or into my presence or into my work or my school or my area of the coffee shop. Hospitality isn't being Martha Stewart in your home, although that's wonderful, and invite me over if that's you, okay, that's great. But it's welcoming of strangers, okay? Now, if you understand this, then you can see how hospitality and evangelism go together, right? That makes more sense now. Because it's not just making good meals, it's inviting people over whom you may or may not know. That's hospitality. And if you understand that, then you're able to unlock the ability to see just how hospitable, that's right, Jesus was to you. And you say, well, Jesus didn't have a house. How could he be hospitable? I don't remember seeing him cook anything, not until Revelation. I mean, he made some fish, I guess. But that's not really that great. I mean, there's no parsnips or gravy. Friends, Jesus, you eat parsnips? Oh, gross. Jesus welcomed in the other, those that were not like him, those who were his enemies. He welcomed them into his literal family when he shed his blood on their behalf. Jesus was the most hospitable person to ever walk the earth, and he didn't have a house. I believe sometimes that the theological structures we learn sort of segment elements of Christian faith that were never meant to be separated in the first place, right? So we think hospitality looks like this, and evangelism looks like this, and discipleship looks like this. Okay, we learn these big theological structures and categories, and sometimes it confuses us. It's better to think about them how they all sort of go together, right? Think about them like the sides on like a set of dice. All of them are a part of the mission of God. God has given all of us to them. He's given all these things to us, and they all bleed into each other, okay? And all of these things are empowered by the Holy Spirit when it comes upon you, but only as you encounter God, okay? So here's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to take you through a linchpin text in the Bible that will anchor our church for this coming year. And I believe that this is going to help you see why radical evangelism and hospitality are a crucial emphasis for us, and why an encounter with God that we've been pushing for these last few years is actually the catalyst for the Seattle Antifreeze inside of you, okay? So let's look at the story of Moses and his encounter with God at the burning bush. And here we'll see 4 commitments that Moses has to make to God, and I'm asking that we as a church make these same 4 commitments this year, okay? Then, after I'm done, we're going to do something unique. You and I are going to have a chance to worship together a little bit, and then we're going to do some specific guided prayer right here in this room. We're going to pray together. We'll walk you through that in a bit. Don't worry, I'll talk to you about it in a second. But for now, let's look at these 4 big commitments together. We're going to look at Exodus chapter 3, verse 2. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, I will turn aside to see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. And when the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses, he said, here I am. And then he said, do not come near, take off your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. And then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and I have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians. And now, skip to verse 9, behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. That's a cool text. So Moses is living a good life. If you don't know the story, he's sort of on the lam, okay? He may not have committed murder, and he's hanging out away from all of the noise, and then all of a sudden God decides to show up in a literal burning bush that doesn't burn away, okay? And God gives him his plans for what he's going to do for Israel. So God, in this moment, in this text, gives Moses specifically a purpose. But God doesn't give Moses his sort of unique solo life's purpose. Rather, God invites Moses to join God in his own purpose. That's a distinction, right? We often think, if I go to church and meet God, I will find my purpose. And that becomes like this talking point. Sort of. Really, you find your place in God's big purpose. And that sort of gives you your purpose, right? And here's where we get our first major commitment for the year, for us, for you, for Doxa. It's this, a commitment to encounter. So here's the point. God is uniquely burdened for Israel in this moment and the way they're treated. You and I have heard all the stories of the Bible and seen God's passion for Israel throughout all of the Bible. We've taught through it, you've read it yourself, but it's not until you and I see the burning bush firsthand and are welcomed into God's very presence, untie our sandals and sit near the flame that we are truly lit on fire for his purpose. You need to get close to God to experience him, to then accomplish his purpose. It doesn't work the other way around. Guys, don't be tricked into believing that faith in following God is sort of an intellectual exercise, okay? Hospitality and evangelism will never come naturally to you until you've been lit on fire by God, sitting with his presence. Because again, you are called to live your own, if you believe you are called to live your own life's purpose and just create it yourself and then sort of add theological categories to it, right? Christian stickers, instead of living out God's purpose, then you're always going to experience friction when trying to live out God's purpose that he has specifically given you. There'll always be friction. If you are a sinner and God is holy and he has called you to a purpose, that means it's not always going to be easy. It should be difficult. There should be some hard moments for you to say, man, this is really hard to have to welcome people into my presence. I don't know them. I don't necessarily know if I like them. How can I walk and talk with them about Jesus? I don't know if I can do that. Yeah, it's supposed to be hard because you're a sinner trying to conform yourself to the image of Jesus. And doing that is going to take work. If you find and are living a life where you feel like your Christian life is always very easy and there's never any elements of friction, then that's the surest sign that you're actually probably living out your own purpose separate from the big, greater purpose that God has given you. Mission is not convenient. Mission, evangelism, really is a sort of mission, and I'll say it like this. Mission and convenience are on a teeter-totter. the more you live out your mission, the more inconvenient it's going to be. That's how it works. The more convenient your life, the less you're probably living out God's mission. Otherwise, Jesus would have had a nice mansion, he would have been driving a big Tesla, and everything would have been comfortable. But that's not how it worked. Mission and convenience are on a teeter-totter. That's true for us. It's not unless you encounter God at the bush that hospitality and evangelism becomes second nature. And then you have no choice but to go tell the world, you know what? I encounter God. I just got to go say it. And hey, guys, this is who Jesus is. The world, it's exhausting. I know you're angry. I know you're frustrated. There's a lot of things going out there. I know you're burned out. My God gives you peace. Don't you want peace? He's your oasis. He's your anchor. Go to him. This year, we have to make a commitment to encounter God first. First commitment. Second, verse 11. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? He said, but I'll be with you. And this shall be a sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. And then Moses said to God, if I come to the people of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what's his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am that I am. Now, God's response is cool, but let's talk about Moses' response for a second. Moses' response is somewhat predictable, I think. Why do I think that? He says, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and tell him to let Israel out of Egypt, right? Like, God's telling me something? Like, why is that so predictable? Because I think he answers back just how you and I would answer God back if he asked us to do something too, right? Well, you want me to go in to my home and open it up to people I don't know? You serious? You want me to open my home to people that I don't know? That aren't like me? I mean, who am I that I could share the gospel at my dinner table? I don't know, God. Like, who am I that I could open up my mouth and communicate the good news of Jesus without fear? You want me to entertain people that I don't know Jesus? You want me to be bold and courageous? Don't you know I'm an introvert? Don't you know my Enneagram number, Lord? Who am I that I could operate outside of my personality test for the sake of Jesus? I think we're all missing something because that's how we all would answer God. And herein lies our next commitment, and it's the commitment to courage. Guys, it's not complicated. Commitment to courage. If you're worried about your house being nice, or you not being wired to be invitational, or maybe how you don't know if you know any non-believers and you don't know if you have the courage to talk to anyone about Jesus, consider all of the ways in which you are actually just afraid to do what God's asked you to do. My point is in all this, it turns out there's a lot going on in us, and we make a lot of reasons and excuses for why we might not want to communicate the gospel. And I think a lot of it is actually just rooted in being afraid. But I want you to ask deeply whether or not any of the reasons why you've made to not actually do what God's asked you to do is actually an excuse and not a reason. I mean, think about Moses, right? Like, God literally shows up to him in a bush on fire that doesn't get burned up, and he still makes excuses. Still does. Maybe you think, well, if God shows up to me in person, then I'll do it. Really? Because a literal prophet of God had God show up to a bush that wasn't burned, and he said, yeah, I don't know if I can go do all that, dude. I'm not sure. Really? Guys, there's always a reason for you to not take on what God has called you to take on. There's always a reason why you can't. There'll always be even a legitimate excuse for why you can't possibly do what God's asked you to do. Some of those, again, are really important, and maybe some of them feel insurmountable. Moses had one of those. He couldn't talk all that well. You want me to go negotiate with the political leader of the entire world and then convince him to lose his economic engine, and I can't talk, and you want me to negotiate? How is that possible? God makes a way, doesn't he? If you're afraid, your fear is rooted in your lack of ability or your lack of a situation or your lack of circumstance or your lack of desire. But having courage is not supposed to be about you, is it? Having courage is not about your abilities or your circumstances. It's supposed to be in the God who has the ability to show up for you. Go, Moses. It's not about your stutter. It's about God. I'm going to do 10 miracles, and then you're going to walk across the Red Sea on dry ground. It's not about you. Just be faithful. Same is true for us. Commit to courage this year. God says, I am who I am. Your courage is not rooted in who you are. It's rooted in who he is, who I am, or who he is, right? What if your theme for the year was boldness, or your theme for the year was unashamedness, or your theme for the year was courage in 2024? Third welcome, or our third commitment. Verse 15, God said to Moses, say this to the people of Israel, the Lord your God of your fathers, the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, has sent me to you, and this is my name forever, and I am thus to be remembered throughout all generations. Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and of Jacob, has appeared to me, saying, I have observed you and what has been done to you in Egypt, and I promise that I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey. Guys, I'll just say it quickly. Critical to Moses' story is how others were also a part of God's plan too. It wasn't just about Moses. Moses is told to invite Israel along in the journey with them. You see, God doesn't intend for you or anyone else to walk alone. That was never his plan. He invites us in on the journey as a people together. Again, we often think of God's will for our lives as some kind of like epic solo adventure in which we only invite people along that we enjoy or like. Fair enough. And other than that, it's between me and God, right? We think of it like that. But God has invited you to invite others along in, just like he invited Moses. And this is our third commitment, the commitment to welcome. This means welcoming others on the faith journey along with you. You have to open your mouth and communicate the good news of Jesus for someone to hear it. This is evangelism and discipleship. This means welcoming others into your presence to serve them and love them the way Jesus welcomed you into his presence, right? That's hospitality. And there are going to be specific people this year that God is going to ask you to welcome into your midst. And let's be honest, he's already been doing that. Some of us just ignore him. But he's always been whispering in your ear, this is the person I want you to communicate the good news with. This is the person I want you to have over and to share finally something that's on their heart. There's something going on in their heart that I want you to administer to them with the gospel with. Guys, in a world that longs to be united and welcomed, you can be the catalyst for that invitation. What if Doxa was the most hospitable church on the east side? What if it was? It could be, if we wanted it to be. What if we had more people in our homes, or took more people out to lunch, or hosted more parties than any other people group in the Puget Sound? What if we did that? What if people could feel the tangible Spirit of God on us because of our radical hospitality, because our God welcomed us and we want to welcome others too? All right, one more commitment. Verse 20, so I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all the wonders that I will do in it. And after that, he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And when you go, you shall not go empty. He says, I'm going to strike my hand out against Egypt. It'd be nice to have a God like that, wouldn't it? Fear makes a lot of sense, guys. Being afraid makes a lot of sense. If you were attempting to free all of Israel from Pharaoh by yourself, that makes a lot of sense, right? In fact, it couldn't work. I mean, Moses couldn't have freed Israel without God. He couldn't have done it. And I think there are these little mini sort of pseudo-pharaohs in our lives that we've been going up against ourselves too. This person is never going to listen to me about God. I can't do that. Like, they're never going to listen. They're hostile. Actually, they don't even like me. Yeah, that might be true. If it were all on your shoulders, you couldn't share the good news of Jesus with them. But you forget that there's someone else sovereign and involved in that situation. And herein lies the last commitment, and it's a commitment to reliance. So we have a commitment to encounter, a commitment to courage, a commitment to welcome, and a commitment to reliance. God gives Moses favor to accomplish his will, and he has been trying to do the same thing for you too. Guys, you have a special power. You have a special power on you as a believer that enables you to accomplish God's mission despite the circumstances. That's called God's favor. It turns out God empowers the things and the people to do the things he wants them to do. That's what favor is. When you live within the will of God, all of a sudden doors open that shouldn't. All of a sudden people change their minds when you didn't think they could. All of a sudden unexplainable resources show themselves. It's not for you and your purpose, it's for God and his. When you live in his will, all of a sudden things work. It's crazy how that happens. Guys, make this year the year you rely on God to accomplish his purpose of saving many people from them sins. He started this process in Egypt, and he's continuing it now in this new covenant time, bringing people to him by the power of the Holy Spirit. And if you rely on God in this moment, you can boldly step out with courageous hospitality and evangelism too. Totally relying on God in this process. Why? Because it is his process when you follow his will. I mean, this church has had a lot of fears, not just fire alarms, but bigger fears. We set these massive goals as a church, as a staff, to try to accomplish things that we don't think we could accomplish. We do this kind of stuff. And one of those things was our financial goals. I mean, you heard our Advent goal. Like, we set this massive $600,000 Advent giving goal. And if I'm candid with you, it's very stressful because not only are we trying to raise money for the ministry, because that's what nonprofits do and churches do, but we also are in a massive six-figure debt. A couple $100,000, not a debt, but a deficit. A couple $100,000 in a deficit leading up to the end of the year. And it's like, okay, God, you ask us to set this goal. Staff, elders, we talk, we pray. Lord, will you meet this? And then like a week before Christmas, you're like, okay, well, we're not gonna meet this goal. Like, we can't meet this goal. There's no chance. I mean, this is too much money. Doxa isn't what, look around. Like, how could we do this? Discouragement comes in, all these things. And then Christmas Eve comes and you're like, man, we have a week to raise close to $300,000. We can't raise that money. There's no way. That would make sense if we were doing it all by ourselves, right? And then 12/31 hits, and not only do we get to celebrate the new year, we get to celebrate what we actually raised. And look how much money we raised by the skin of our teeth. It's right here. $601,783.33. I'll be honest with you, okay? I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I'm like, is God real? You know what I mean? Like, is he? I mean, I haven't seen him, But if he wasn't, there would be like a collective series of unexplainable, oddly specific coincidences that happen to happen around the exact time I'm praying, that to nobody apparently, and it happens. And I go, wow, God, $601,000, like to the T. I mean, he didn't go 538, 790. He said, just enough, one day at a time. That's a God that we serve. We don't have to do this alone. You all allowed God to work through you. And you said, I want to participate on the journey with you, God. I want to be a vehicle. I'll give $1, $1,000, $10,000. I just want to be a part of it. And you allowed God to use you, and you met the needs of the church. And in so doing, more people are going to get to hear the good news of Jesus as a result. You could do the same thing with your hospitality and evangelism. Now, maybe it's easier to give money sometimes, but you opening your home and sharing the gospel and taking a chance that God might use that is the same thing as giving money to a church. It's the same thing. It's all part of God's purpose to bring about the purpose of his will. It's all part of it. Great job, Doxa. I'm proud of all of you for meeting that goal. Okay. Moses encounters God. He's called to courage and to welcome Israel along with him, and he continually relies on God to accomplish this mission. You and I need to make these 4 commitments this year too, okay? Will you untie your sandals and open his word and worship him in his presence, and in so doing, be moved to his purpose and let it set you on fire? Okay. I want to close with a couple calls to action for us as a church, but also for you as individuals, okay? A few things, and we're going to pray and all of that stuff after, but here's a few calls to actions for all of us. Here's the first one. A higher calling to personal corporate evangelism and hospitality. I'm not going to preach a whole nother sermon, don't worry, but I just want to say that this year we want to privately in our homes and corporately as a church be a welcoming presence to all people here on the east side. We want to host non-Christian acquaintances in our homes for meals and fellowship. Step up to the plate and begin asking in your head, who are the 2 or 3 people I can ask over for dinner this year? Who, if I don't have a dinner table, I know that's true for some of you, or maybe you have roommates and it's crazy, who are the 2 or 3 people that you can take out to coffee or invite on a walk, right? We also want to grow in our welcoming presence on Sunday. And let me just say, after 2.5 years of being a Doxa, the vibe in the sanctuary space and also in the building has changed a lot. And it's grown. We've grown so much in our hospitality. But we want to keep growing. And so if you're a friendly, hospitable face, we need you to serve in hospitality and greeting and kids ministry, and join us in that, because we want to be the most welcoming church we can possibly be, okay? And by the way, if you're bubbly, you can't hide, we're going to find you. And we're just going to ask you directly, and you're going to say yes, because you're so kind and happy all the time, right? We're coming for you. Now, if you feel unequipped to do this, to be hospitable in your home or the church, or you feel unequipped to share the gospel, we're committed to teaching through evangelism and hospitality this year as well. If you weren't here last week, we actually started already. Pastor Justin gave us a word on spiritual formation with hospitality. It was great. But I think for the first time in the history of Doxa, we've angled the books of the Bible that we're going to be teaching through to create overlap in this vision here tonight. So we're actually going to teach through hospitality and evangelism in the books we've chosen this year. And so you're going to get a taste of these 2 big concepts all year. It's going to hit you, okay? So here's the books we're going to teach through. Beginning next Sunday, we're teaching through the 10 unique parables in the book of Luke. Parables are highly evangelistic, which is really cool. Teaching through the book of Haggai, ask me about that one. Jude, Jesus Every Day, which is going to be an evangelism and hospitality series, topical. Faith and Work, 2024, we're going to do that again. It was really awesome this past year. We're going to do it again. Proverbs, and funny enough, we're going to teach you the book of Exodus in the fall. And we're going to talk about the burning bush again, a lot. And then finally, Advent 2024. Now, still, the most effective way to teach and reach non-Christians with the gospel is actually through church planting. And this is why Doxa is doubling down on our church planting support this year through our network affiliations, but also through some particular churches as well. And so let me give you a few churches that you guys all give to support, and we'll be doing the same this year. Soma Fuchu in Tokyo, Japan. Many of you know that we've been supporting Soma Fuchu for a long time. Pastor Yoshi has served there faithfully for many years, and Doxa has supported their efforts since its beginning in 2015. Pretty cool. Some churches may never be sustainable because of the regions they're in, right? There are 36 million people in Tokyo metro region, and less than 1% of them are Christian. I mean, we thought the east side was the freeze, right? Puts things in perspective. Soma Fucho is going strong and adding disciples year by year. Next, we're supporting a church near and dear to my heart in San Francisco called Redemption Church. Now, Redemption Church is pastored by Chris Davis, and it's a replant church in one of the most diverse regions in the city. Fun fact about San Francisco itself, less than 4% of people attend a faith gathering on a Sunday morning in San Francisco. I said faith gathering. So any gathering, not Christian church, any gathering. Disciples are needed there, right? Another church, Eden Church. It's in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is Pastor Brandon Cobb and his wife Malia. They're launching Eden Church later this year. And we are supporting them financially through this process. We've made a 4-year commitment to them. But we're also going to assist with supporting their legal board until they establish local elders. There's a lot of needs a church plant has. Money is the biggest one, but then people coming around them is another, and we have an opportunity to sit on their board for a while until they're able to establish local leaders, which is really cool. Their goal, by the way, in New Jersey is to cultivate the Garden State with the gospel. It just flows off the tongue. Next one. This is the Advance Initiative. Now, the Advance Initiative is a network. It's not just a church, it's a network that is catalyzing a global movement of multi-ethnic churches planted by and amongst Indians around the world. It's a very cool opportunity to support Ajay Thomas. He actually preached for us in our Voices series. He's a pastor in Philadelphia, and they're facilitating and supporting churches around the world planted among and by Indians. It's very cool, and we get to support that ministry. Now, we also want to welcome our neighbors in some other ways, gender-specific spaces in particular. And this year, we're hosting a men's event and a women's event. Now, men, I don't know if we just sprung this on you, but it's coming up, okay? So it's a Saturday. Is that the right day? It might be. Well, it's the last Saturday in January. The 27th, that's right. It's the 27th, not the 28th. And so it's coming up. We want you to be there for that, and it's invitational. Both these events are invitational for you to invite people that, maybe don't go to Doxa to come and hear the gospel preached, but also eat some good food. And I think for the men, there's going to be a lot of bacon involved, which seems to easily lure men into church buildings. It's not that hard to get a man in church. You just tell them there's bacon there. It's simple. Actually, amen. From the peanut gallery. Bacon works on women? Okay, fair enough. I stand corrected. So that's a higher calling to hospitality and evangelism. We also have a higher calling to membership. Now this is an important detail. We want membership to include some of this vision as well for 2024. And when you become a member at a church, it's not just about the benefits, right? But it's about training and covenant. And we have responsibilities to you as members, for those of you that are members, and you have responsibilities to each other as the church, right? That's what covenant is. Now, historically, here at Doxa, if you believed that you lived out the 4 Gs, gather, grow, give, and go, then we could make you a member, right? And that's all still true. But now we are going to sort of up the ante in our membership. And so we were actually asking that all members walk through our 3 classes through these 4 Gs in order to continue membership or to join membership at Doxa. And so we have 3 classes that happen 4 times a year each: gather, grow, give, and go. And the goal is that you would get some of this hospitality and evangelism that's dripped into that, but more importantly, you would learn the discipleship process and bring people along with you in that. Now, not only that, for members, which we're now asking you to go through these classes, we are asking you, because discipleship is not a linear process. It's not a line, right? 101, 201, 301, I'm a disciple. It's different. It's a circle, which means that as you walk with Jesus and as you feel led and you feel ready, you grab somebody else along with you and take them on their discipleship journey. That's discipleship, that's multiplication, right? That's what we want. And so not only are we asking all members to walk through our 4 Gs classes, we combine 2 Gs, gather, grow. We also want you to take someone who hasn't been to a class to their first class as a way to get them going on their discipleship journey. That's why we call it full circle discipleship, okay? So current members, we want you to be trained to gather, grow, give, go. These are hospitality evangelism or elements of this. You need to hit these 3 classes to stay a member at Doxa. If you want to be a member at Doxa, great. Gather, grow, give, go. You do those things. You come to our classes, and we'll get you rolling as a member. And then each year, at the beginning of each year, we're going to actually put forth an annual membership affirmation for you to re-up in your membership, okay? Because we want to make sure that we're providing enough that you are able to give enough feedback into what's actually happening. And so this can be a true partnership. And we believe that we really trust that if you can learn to do these 4 things well, you can be an authentic disciple of Jesus. Okay. Next, a higher calling to leadership. Don't worry, we're almost out of here. One of our core values at Doxa is that we multiply, okay? Now, in order to do this well, we need to create more leaders. We need more leaders, big surprise. We have a lot of great elders, we got some deacons, we got some great team leaders, all of you guys are there. And most people that show up to a night like this are mostly our leaders, right? Like that's how it typically works. And so I know I'm preaching to the choir in some sense, but here's what we did for you. We have developed a clear linear process for those of us that want to grow in our leadership more deeply with legitimate and tangible outcomes, okay? So this year, we will launch a cohort-based leadership development that will continue the process that Full Circle Discipleship starts. Okay, so here's how it works. For those that finish Full Circle Discipleship, okay, here's our first tier, so to speak. The tangible outcome of this tier is that you go through the 3 classes, you become a member at Doxa. For those that finish Full Circle Discipleship, you can move then into a leadership cohort that will develop you further if you would like. And we will take you through, in cohorts, through these several things, these 7 things. Theological clarity, spiritual vitality, conviction and commendation, healthy marriage, healthy relationships, godly leadership, and spiritual maturity. Now, these cohorts are going to be bi-monthly, and they'll be led by an elder to help you develop these skills. Now, the desired outcome I was telling you about is that we would find future deacons, future team leaders, even future staff people at Doxa, and even elders and, God willing, more church planters through this process. And at the very least, if you don't become any of those things, hopefully it was worth your time and you get what you pay for, right? So the first one of these we're going to pilot in the spring, but it's going to be invitational only for the first round so we can work out the kinks. But I'm going to lead that. And we'll invite you and find you in, but only if you've gone through the first Full Circle tier, which is going through the G's classes, okay? That's the point. I think this is gonna help us multiply our church at a much faster rate, okay? Finally, one last thing before we bring the band up. If you leave here with one task, this is your task. Find and fulfill your ministry here at Doxa, okay? Not to just come. Don't just attend Doxa, be Doxa. What can you add to this church family? What do you want to do among us? What gifts do you have? Music, kids, hospitality, MC leader, faith and work. Can you add something to do amongst our church that we don't currently already provide or do ourselves? Maybe amongst your MC, it's not like a legitimate service at Doxa, but maybe it's something that your MC is collectively decided is going to be your missional focus. What is it? Find, name, and fulfill your ministry at Doxa. Guys, church is not about attendance. It's about participation. It's about being the church. And that's why we have nights like this, so we can share that. We want you to join in on God's authentic discipleship journey and sort of buck the system of this old American evangelicalistic system. We want you to get rid of that and understand that discipleship is participatory. Okay? Be specific. Lord, thank you for an opportunity. Even on a night like this, with all the chaos going on, you're still in control. I'm thankful for this church, how it's changed, how it's grown since 2015, how the new people have participated, how you meet our needs. I'm thankful that we can continually encounter you, commit to you with courage, welcome others along in the journey, and hopefully continually rely on a good God and good Savior who loves us. And I pray for anyone walking in the door here who was like, I just wanted to come to Doxa today. I didn't think I was going to get in all this. That's okay. We're thankful for you too. And Lord, I pray that you would be kind to them and show them that we do these things for Jesus. We do these things because we believe that this Jesus Christ, that he went to the cross, he shed his blood, and when his disciples come to find him, the tomb was empty, and he rose from the grave. And that power lives in us. We love you. We praise you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.